I hadn't seen Jenna or her husband, Kyle, in more than a decade. No calls, no pictures of the grandchildren I'd never met. Then, one humid afternoon on Kiowa Island, my glass door slid open, and there they were. Wrinkled, nervous, desperate. Jenna's eyes darted around my living room like she was afraid to breathe the same air, while Kyle tried to smile, that tight salesman smile that never reached his eyes. I knew before a word was spoken why they'd come. Money has a way of sniffing out the people who once thought you were worthless. And I could almost taste the bitterness in the air, that strange mixture of shame and greed that always follows when the forgotten suddenly become useful again. My name is Ruth Bennett, 69, a retired bookkeeper from Savannah who still counts everything, receipts, blessings, and the number of times I swallow back tears before breakfast. People think bookkeepers love numbers. I loved order. Numbers were only the way to keep it. When Jenna married Kyle, order evaporated from my life like steam from a cracked kettle. I met Kyle in my kitchen the week before their wedding. He stood by the window, already moving things around like he owned the place, shifted my jar of wooden spoons, set his beer bottle on my recipe notebook. "You don't mind, do you, Ruth?" he said, a smile that never reached his eyes. I minded. I always minded with Kyle. It wasn't the beer or the spoons. It was the unspoken rule he carried like a badge: your space is only yours until I arrive. The last honest conversation Jenna and I had happened in that same kitchen. I was frosting a pecan sheet cake, the kind she loved as a child. She said, softly, "Mom, don't start with him." I asked what that meant. She looked everywhere but at me. "He thinks you judge him." The frosting knife clinked against the bowl. "I don't judge him," I said, though of course I did. I judge what he does. What he did was very simple: cut me out in small, polite slices. Holidays hosted, on their side, this year. Calls that moved from Sundays to too busy to never. The last time Jenna slept in her old room, she left at dawn, hair unbrushed, whispering, "Sorry," like a thief. After the wedding, I became an address, not a mother. When the silence started, I thought it would be a season. Seasons pass. Then a year turned into 2, then 5. At first, I left voicemails. "Hi, baby, it's me. I made that soup you like. Call me if you want the recipe." Later, the messages shortened into weather reports and apologies. "Cold today." I shouldn't have said what I said. I didn't know which words I shouldn't have said, so I took responsibility for all of them. That is the curse of mothers. We volunteer as culprits when the crime is nameless. Money didn't save me then. Work did. I started baking for the Saturday market, pies and pralines, the way my Aunt May taught me when I was 12 and too small to lift the cast iron pan. Cinnamon, butter, sugar, the holy trinity of survival. I tied gingham ribbons on each box, wrote the flavor in tidy letters, and smiled at strangers who smiled back. The market became my church. People lined up not because they loved me, but because they loved what I made. It was enough. I lived cheap. Rented a one-bedroom near Forsyth Park. Mended my own hem. Kept a jar for quarters. Loneliness makes you frugal, even with hope. Yet I kept one extravagant habit. I set an extra plate on my kitchen table, just in case. The plate stayed empty for 12 years. But it reminded me that love, like bread, should remain warmable. Aunt May died on a Tuesday. She had no children, only plants that outlived their pots and a box of church bulletins she never threw away. We weren't close, but she watched me from across the years the way a lighthouse watches ships, quietly, steadily. When her lawyer called about the inheritance, I laughed. "There must be a mistake," I said. There wasn't. May had sold land no one believed in, waited like a cat, and left the surprise to the only girl who learned to candy pecans without burning the syrup. Her letter came with the papers. "Live your final years as the queen you always were, not the beggar they made you feel." I carried those words folded in my bra to keep them near my heart. With her gift, I bought a small beach house on Kiowa Island, white siding, a deck that overlooks marsh grass, a kitchen window where the dawn slips in like a quiet apology. I moved in with my mixers, my cast iron, and a stack of unsent letters to Jenna tied with twine. Peace is a job. I made it my job. Mornings, I walked the shore collecting shells with ridges like fingerprints. I learned the names of the gulls from a bird book someone left at the little free library. I made friends at a distance. The couple who jogs at 6, the boy who fishes at the bend, the woman with red hair who swims even on cold days. And Officer Yvette, my neighbor, who brings lemons from her mother's tree and insists I take the larger ones. At night, I sat with a cup of chamomile and paid my bills the old-fashioned way, pen, ledger, envelopes, because tapping numbers into a phone never felt like ownership. I watched the news until it made me anxious, then I turned it off and listened to the ocean tell me nothing lasts, not even grief. But the body remembers. Some afternoons, the ache of being nobody's mother pressed so hard I had to turn on the mixer just to drown it out. I baked for ghosts. I spooned praline onto parchment and imagined small hands stealing the warm ones. Grandma, can I have another? A voice I had to invent because I'd never heard it. Once a year, on Jenna's birthday, I set a candle in a cinnamon roll and whispered, "Happy birthday, baby," into an empty room. I didn't post it, didn't text, didn't call. I had learned the hard way that love can humiliate you if you keep pushing it on people who don't want it. Then the market people started calling me the praline queen, and I laughed because maybe Aunt May's wish came true in sugar, if not in gold. Tourists took photos of my table. One woman cried when she tasted the bourbon pecan pie and said it reminded her of her father. I cried with her, two strangers holding napkins to our faces under a striped awning while the world kept buying toothpicks and souvenir hats. I could have left Savannah then, moved full-time to the island. But I kept that little booth. Work keeps hands from wringing. The first week in the beach house, I found a faded kite tangled in the palmettos. Blue, torn tail. I fixed it with kitchen twine and flew it in a stubborn wind until it dipped, then rose steady. I thought, let that be me. Frayed, mended, still willing to catch a breeze. I told no one about the inheritance except Yvette. She knows when the streetlights go out, who's fighting, and who's pretending not to. She also knows how to keep a confidence. Treat yourself, she said, tapping my forearm. And don't you dare apologize for breathing easy. So I bought a good mattress, a lemon tree in a pot, and a set of heavy glasses that make water taste like a decision. 12 years is a long time to rehearse a reunion in your head. Mine always began at my gate. Jenna would appear with a soft, guilty face, say, "Mom, I was wrong," and I would answer, "I know, baby," and the past would become a story we survived, not a place we lived. In the fantasy, Kyle was invisible. Reality prefers mess. On the day they came, the air was thick as syrup. I had a tray of pralines cooling on the counter, Aunt May's letter tucked into my cookbook, and sand on my ankles from the morning walk. The glass door slid. 2 shadows crossed the rug. Order, once again, exhaled and left the room. "Mom," Jenna said, her voice trembling like she was 14 again and caught sneaking out, "we need to talk." I wiped my hands on a towel, not offering a hug. 12 years too late, but go on. Kyle stepped forward, his cologne sharp and arrogant. "Ruth, let's not make this harder than it needs to be." "That depends," I said. "Harder for whom?" He gave a salesman's chuckle, the kind meant to warm strangers before a pitch. "We've had some bad luck. My construction company went under during the pandemic, and the bank's threatening foreclosure. We just need a little help to get back on our feet." "A loan, temporary." He said loan the way liars say promise. "How much?" I asked, because cruelty hides best behind precision. 120,000. Jenna flinched when he said it. I turned to her. "You married him, not me. You didn't speak to me for 12 years. Why now?" Her lips trembled. "We didn't mean for it to go this long. Things just got convenient," I finished. Kyle's jaw tightened. "Families help each other. Families show up when it matters," I said evenly, "not when it's profitable." For a moment, no one spoke. Outside, the ocean hissed against the sand, relentless and unimpressed by human tragedies. Jenna started to cry, soft and panicked. "Please, Mom, we've got kids. We'll lose the house." I studied her face, the new wrinkles, the tired eyes. She looked like me at 40, when her father left, and I learned what it meant to keep a roof over a child's head by sheer stubbornness. But pity has a short shelf life when it's been starved too long. "Where are the kids now?" I asked. "In the car," Kyle said quickly. "We didn't want to overwhelm you." "Overwhelm me," I murmured. "That's considerate." I moved toward the kitchen counter, slicing lemon for tea just to have something to do. You've had 12 years to ask how I've been. 12 years to send a birthday card. Now you want 6 figures. That's quite a reunion. Kyle spread his hands. Look, we made mistakes. You made some too, but holding grudges doesn't help anyone. That word, grudge, landed like a slap. A grudge is when you refuse to forgive. I just stopped volunteering for punishment. He smirked. So that's a no? It's a conversation, I said, not a transaction. But his eyes were already elsewhere, calculating, scanning the furniture, the view, the marble floor. The smell of money had brought him here. Yvette's voice echoed from outside before I could answer. Ruth? You home? I opened the door. Officer Yvette stood with her usual brightness, holding a bag of lemons. Didn't mean to intrude. Her gaze flicked to Kyle and Jenna, reading the tension like a crime scene. We were just catching up, I said lightly. Kyle stiffened. We should probably get going. And that's when a small voice broke through the grown-up noise. A boy's voice. Mom? Can I come out? The car door creaked open before anyone could stop him. A thin, dark-haired boy ran up the walkway, clutching a worn backpack. He stopped a few feet from me, eyes wide. Are you my grandma? The world tilted. Kyle barked, Grayson, get back in the car. But I knelt down, ignoring him. Yes, I whispered. I'm your grandma. Grayson's face brightened like dawn through fog. Mom said you make candy. I do, I said, my throat closing. Would you like some? He nodded eagerly. Yvette smiled softly. I'll stay a bit, she said, stepping inside with the casual authority of someone who knows when a storm's brewing. Kyle's glare could have cut glass, but he stayed silent as I poured lemonade for everyone. Jenna sat at the table, wringing her hands. Grayson licked praline from his fingers, oblivious to the adult war. When the boy ran to the porch to look at seashells, I turned to Jenna. Tell me the truth, all of it. Her eyes darted to Kyle, then back to me. We're broke, Mom. Kyle said the company lost money because of investors pulling out, but then I found papers. He transferred the house deed into the company's name. He said it was for taxes. But it wasn't. Kyle slammed his palm on the table. Don't start this now. Yvette straightened. Sir, maybe you should sit down. He ignored her. She's exaggerating. We just need a bridge loan. Bridge to where? I asked. You've already burned the shore. Jenna's voice cracked. He lied to me, Mom. About the loans, about everything. I thought we were rebuilding, but he... Enough. Kyle shouted, but the authority was gone. Even his posture sagged. I rose slowly, years of silence hardening in my chest. You've lied to her, used her, and now you want to use me. That ends here. He sneered. You think you can judge me? You don't even know your grandkids. Because you kept them from me. He laughed, sharp and ugly. You were always dramatic, Ruth. Yvette stepped closer. Sir, that's enough. But Jenna stood up first, between us. Her shoulders shook, but her voice was clear. Mom's not dramatic. She's honest. And I'm done pretending you're not a liar. For the first time, Kyle looked small. The kind of small that comes when power slips through greedy fingers. He muttered something about betrayal, about taking the kids, and stormed out, slamming the screen door so hard the glass rattled. The three of us, me, Jenna, and Yvette, stood in the echo of that slam. Rain had started, soft and apologetic. Jenna sank into the chair, face buried in her hands. I don't even know where to start. I brought her a towel. Start with honesty. It's free. She laughed through tears. He said you'd never forgive me. I'm not sure I will, I admitted. But forgiveness isn't a down payment. It's a choice you earn. Grayson peeked through the doorway, worried. Is Mommy okay? She will be, I said, touching his hair gently. We both will. Jenna looked up, eyes red but clear. If I leave him, we'll have nothing. No house, no car. You'll have peace, I said. And sometimes that's worth more than roofs. Outside, the rain grew heavier. Yvette gave me a knowing nod and quietly stepped out, leaving us in the hush that follows confession. Jenna exhaled, long and broken. What if he comes back? Then he'll find the locks changed, I said. She almost smiled. Still the bookkeeper, always practical. Order matters, I said softly. Even after chaos. And somewhere between the storm and the cooling pralines, I realized, the years hadn't taken my motherhood. They'd just been waiting for me to reclaim it. I didn't sleep that night. The rain kept whispering against the roof, and every time thunder rolled over the ocean, I imagined Kyle's truck headlights cutting across my window. Old habits of fear return easily, even when the danger has left. Jenna slept on the couch with Grayson curled against her chest. I covered them with the quilt my mother made from scraps of my childhood dresses, faded violets and tiny blue checks. He looked peaceful, his small hand tangled in his mother's hair. The sight made something ache deep inside me, something that had been locked away since the day Jenna drove off and never looked back. At dawn, I brewed coffee and watched the gulls swoop over the gray water. Yvette knocked around 7, her uniform crisp even on her day off. She held a paper bag. Brought muffins, she said. Didn't think you'd sleep. You thought right, I said, pouring her a cup. She leaned on the counter, scanning the quiet living room. You gonna call somebody about that man? He looked ready to explode. I won't need to, I said. Once Jenna files for separation, he'll be too busy lying to his lawyer to bother me. Yvette raised an eyebrow. You sure she's ready for that? I looked toward the couch where Jenna stirred, blinking into the morning. She has to be. Sometimes a woman doesn't need courage, she just runs out of choices. When Jenna sat up, confusion flickered before recognition. Mom? Coffee's fresh, I said. She joined us at the table, eyes swollen but steadier. I didn't think we'd end up here, she whispered. I didn't think he'd. You thought you could fix him, I finished. We all think that, until we realize broken people cut whoever tries to hold them. She stared at her cup. He said I was weak. Said I'd never survive without him. Funny, I said. He survived just fine off you. Yvette chuckled softly. Amen to that. Jenna managed a small laugh, and for the first time I saw a trace of the girl who used to dance barefoot in the kitchen while I made Sunday pancakes. Grayson woke then, yawning. Grandma, can we go to the beach? The word grandma caught me off guard. It rolled through the house like music. After breakfast, I said, forcing my voice steady. We ate in silence for a while, muffins, orange slices, 2 strong coffee. Then Jenna took a deep breath. Mom, I found something before we left. She reached into her bag and pulled out a manila envelope. Inside were photocopies of deeds, bank statements, and a letter. Proof Kyle forged signatures. I didn't know what to do with it. Yvette whistled low. That's enough to bury him. Jenna's hands shook. I just want it over. I want the kids safe. You've already taken the first step, I said. Leaving is half the battle. She looked at me, voice breaking. You still want to see the kids? After everything? I never stopped wanting to, I said. But visits happen on neutral ground. The library has story hour Wednesdays. Start there. Let them know me without the ghosts. She nodded slowly. You'd really do that? I will. When she smiled, a weary, genuine thing, it felt like sunrise breaking through a long storm. By noon, Yvette had arranged a meeting with a friend at Family Services, just to make sure Jenna knew her options. Watching them go over papers, I realized how many years I'd spent preparing for a conversation that would never come, only to find that the real one was simpler. I'm here. You're safe. We start over. Later that day, Jenna packed her few bags into her car. The kids were with a friend, she said. She'd pick them up once she found a motel. I slipped a small envelope into her hand before she left. What's this? Enough for a week of rooms and meals. No strings. She started to protest, then saw my face and stopped. Thank you. Don't thank me, I said. Just make it count. When the car disappeared down the street, I stood on the porch long after the engine noise faded. The air smelled of salt and wet pine. For the first time in years, the silence felt earned, not the silence of abandonment, but of resolution. 2 weeks passed. Each Wednesday, I went to the library at 3 o'clock, sat by the puzzle table, and waited. The first week, no one came. The second, I almost gave up at 10 minutes past. Then a small voice said, Grandma? Lily, 7 years old, freckles like constellations across her nose, stood beside Grayson. Jenna waited near the door, letting them come on their own. I swallowed hard. You like puzzles? Mom says you're the best at them, Lily said. I smiled. She might be right. We spent an hour fitting pieces together, cats, teapots, missing corners, and for every snap of cardboard, something inside me clicked into place too. After that, Wednesdays became sacred. We read, drew, whispered secrets. Sometimes Jenna joined, sometimes she watched from afar. Each week she looked stronger, lighter. One evening, after the kids left, I returned home to find an envelope in my mailbox. Inside was a note from Jenna. Mom, I filed the papers today. It's scary, but I feel free. Thank you for not turning me away. P.S. Grayson says your candy tastes like magic. I pressed the note to my chest. The ocean roared in the distance, steady and endless, like an old friend who finally speaks again after a long silence. 2 months later, my phone buzzed with a text from an unfamiliar number. Lily. Grandma, I'm sorry we didn't know you sooner. Want to do puzzles at the library tomorrow? I typed back through tears. I'd love that. That night, I walked down to the shore, sand cool beneath my feet. I thought of Aunt May, of the letter she left me, of the way she believed peace was a crown you had to claim yourself. She was right. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when no one else does. I looked at the horizon and whispered, "Thank you, May. I'm finally home." Then I turned toward the lights of the town, ready for tomorrow's puzzles, for laughter, for the new story beginning where the old one ended. If you've ever been forgotten by your own children, remember this. Your peace is not punishment, it's the reward you earn when you stop begging to be seen. Would you forgive them? A week after that first library visit, he came back, not into the house, but into my peace. I saw Kyle from a distance, his fingers clenched around his phone, jaw working, eyes sharp as broken glass. I was arranging boxes of pralines at the Saturday market. The caramel had just set, and the smell of cinnamon pulled people in like music. We need to talk, he said, stopping close enough for me to smell his cologne and his desperation. Talk where there's sunlight, I replied, stepping from behind the stall so everyone could hear. You're turning Jenna against me. Police, lawyers, kids, you're destroying a family. Families destroy themselves, I said quietly, with lies and forged papers. He froze for a moment, then tried his usual charm. Fine, forget the 120. Just 40, I'll pay it back. We just need to get through this month. Kyle, I smiled faintly, I don't finance months anymore. I invest in years, in children. He leaned closer, voice dripping acid. I'll tell everyone you abandoned your own daughter. That you sit here pretending to be some island queen while your grandkids go hungry. Go ahead, I said. People who buy my candy already know who I am. The question is, do they know who you are? He started to speak again, but a shadow fell between us. Morning, Yvette said, flashing her badge. Everything okay here? Kyle swallowed hard. The fight drained from his face. Without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving the air behind him sour. That night I finally exhaled. Jenna called from a motel. She'd filed for legal separation. Her lawyer had accepted the papers. As I listened, I realized every hour of silence over those 12 years had been training for this exact moment. We both needed endurance more than pity. By Wednesday, I was back at the library, helping Grayson build a fortress out of books while Lily scribbled in her notebook. Grandma, she asked, what are boundaries? It's when you say, this much, and no more, I told her, tracing a small circle with my hands. So it doesn't hurt anymore. Later that week, Jenna met with her attorney. I went along, sitting in a small office that smelled of coffee and caution. Mrs. Bennett, he said, you could set up an educational trust for the children, school meals, books, tutoring. No adult access. Let's do it, I answered. And add chess lessons. They'll need to learn how to think 2 moves ahead. When I signed the papers, my fingers remembered the discipline of bookkeeping, steady, precise, a small resurrection of the woman I used to be. Walking home, I found an unmarked envelope on my porch. Inside was a copy of a letter Kyle had sent to the school. The grandmother is manipulative. Dangerous. Ban contact. The words were nails, each one hammered with spite. I put the letter on the table, turned on the kettle, and opened the window. Let the sea breeze in. Darkness hates daylight. The following Tuesday was the hearing. The courtroom smelled of old files and human exhaustion. Kyle sat on the right, rigid, his lawyer whispering in his ear. Jenna sat left, fragile but upright. I sat between them, an island between 2 storms. Mrs. Bennett, the judge said, you may speak. I stood, knees steady. I'm not asking for anything, I said. I just want the children to have what's naturally theirs, peace and safety. My wallet is open to them. Not to the adults who broke it. The judge nodded. The rest was paperwork and evidence. forged deeds, false loans, the quiet proof of betrayal. Even judges tire of men who repeat the same sins. By noon, the decision was done: temporary restriction on Kyle's contact with the children, the trust approved, visits only under their mother's supervision. He caught me in the hallway afterward, his face pale with fury. "You think you won?" he hissed. "You're just an old woman buying love with sugar." "I'm buying time," I said. "Love comes on its own." He smirked. "You don't have enough fight left for this game." "Lucky for me," I said, "it isn't a game." Outside, Yvette was waiting by her car. "Well, the first round's over," I said. "Now comes discipline." She laughed. "You sound like a boxing coach." "I'm a baker," I replied. "Timing and temperature, that's all it takes." Autumn unrolled like a heavy book. Every Wednesday, the kids and I built puzzles at the library. Every Friday, I dropped off lunches at school: turkey sandwiches, apples, little notes that said "You are brave and you are kind." One day Lily handed me a drawing: a sea, a house, and a bright blue kite. "It's ours," she said. "It tears sometimes, but it still flies." "That's because someone's holding the string," I told her. That night, I texted Jenna, "Don't bring the kids to my house yet. Stay where the light is: public, school, library, park. Darkness can't survive where people see it." She replied within a minute, "Okay. I'm learning." "Thank you, Mom." That word, Mom, felt warm enough to melt all the years between us. By Christmas, I didn't decorate the house. I just placed my little lemon tree on the windowsill, its fruit glowing like quiet suns. The kids sent a photo from the library: paper stars, wide grins, eyes full of mischief. I looked at it and felt full for the first time in years. Kyle sent messages, long, sticky half-apologies tangled with new demands. I never replied. The law could answer better than I ever could. Then one evening, near sunset, the doorbell rang. Jenna stood there, no suitcase, no tears, just a folder. "It's final," she said softly. "The divorce is done. I signed everything." We sat at the kitchen table drinking tea. She traced the rim of her cup. "You know, I used to think you interfered. But you just refused to let me drown." "There's a difference," I said. "One hurts. The other saves." She nodded, eyes glistening. "If I rebuild my life honestly, will you keep meeting the kids at the library?" "Yes," I said. "Not at my house, neutral ground. That's where new stories begin." She smiled. And in that moment, I knew the cycle was broken. People might still ask why I didn't give her the money. I'll tell them this: I gave something better. I gave the children a future without fear. I gave my daughter her freedom. And I gave myself a silence that finally doesn't ache. A few weeks later, the air on Kiowa turned softer, the kind that smells of salt and second chances. I spent my mornings baking again, this time not to forget, but to celebrate. Boxes of pralines lined my counter, each one wrapped for the library fundraiser Jenna was organizing. She called it Stories and Sweets, Rebuilding with Kindness. When she arrived with Lily and Grayson, the children ran straight to the kitchen. "Grandma," Grayson shouted, holding up a school certificate. "I got Most Improved Reader." I clapped so hard the cat bolted under the couch. Jenna laughed, a real laugh, free and unguarded. We packed the boxes into her trunk, and she turned to me. "Mom," she said quietly, "you were right. Peace costs nothing, but you have to earn it every day." I kissed her forehead. "Then keep earning it, baby." As they drove away, I stood in the doorway, wind lifting my apron, heart steady. Some stories don't end, they simply breathe easier. Tell me in the comments, would you forgive them? And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that heal and empower.